We have big breaking news from Capitol Hill tonight on two fronts. Former FBI Director Andrew McCabe is reportedly asking for immunity before he offers testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee. Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley wants McCabe, former FBI Chief Jim Comey, and former Attorney General Loretta Lynch to testify when the IG report on the Hillary Clinton email investigation is finally released. On a separate front, Fox News chief intelligence correspondent Catherine Herridge is reporting this. A lawmaker telling her that FBI espionage chief Bill Priestap, who oversaw the Russia and Clinton probes, has been very cooperative with congressional investigators. Priestap was also the supervisor of FBI agent Peter Strzok, who bashed President Trump, of course, remember, in several texts. The source says that Strzok played an even larger role than we thought initially in the Clinton email probe and the Russia investigations. Let's discuss all of this now with Congressman Ron DeSantis, a member of the House and Judiciary Committees, House Oversight and Judiciary Committees, Democratic strategist Richard Goodstein, and former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Robert Driscoll. Gentlemen, it's great to see all of you. Big breaking news tonight. Congressman DeSantis, where do we begin? Let's start with this immunity plea for McCabe. Every time you hear someone who's like connected with Trump said might want immunity, it's like, oh my God, you want immunity, you must be guilty. But what's going on here?
Well, look, I mean, James Comey said Andrew McCabe stood tall, was just this model leader, and now he wants immunity because he knows he's in jeopardy with his conduct over this investigation, both the Clinton and the Trump investigation. I would not give him immunity. I would make him go. If he's going to plead the Fifth Amendment, then he should plead the Fifth Amendment. But the idea that he should get some type of get-out-of-jail-free card for this is not something I think the American people would want to see.
Richard.
So the president said in tweets about McCabe, lied, lied, lied. He personally called McCabe's wife a loser, right? That's a classy move.
Richard, we're talking. Let's keep
I'm
it
just
focused.
saying.
We have very limited time. I want to keep this focused.
But the point is,
on the former
McCabe...
Deputy Attorney General wanting immunity.
Yeah.
If he has nothing to hide, if he was above board, if he had permission to release information to the media, why is he asking for immunity? That's what you guys do to the Trump people,
And I'm saying that last
correct?
sentence, when the president asked for the Fifth Amendment, please, what you just said, bring that back. Look, the reason is...
When is the president asking for the Fifth Amendment?
Well, everybody seems to suggest that might be an Look, here's the answer on McCabe.
Not everybody.
If you've got a president who issues pardons willy-nilly, has no qualms about asking the Justice Department to go after somebody, so McCabe would be out of his mind not to seek immunity when you've got somebody at the top of the, basically, who oversees the Justice Department.
His own lawyer is saying he's concerned about his client being prosecuted.
He should be concerned when you got the president going after people like crazy.
But this is a...
Right?
This is a criminal referral, though, that was made by the Inspector General. I mean, the Inspector General laid the predicate for this, did he not, Richard? I mean, I get it that you don't like Trump. I get it, and that's fine. It's a big nation. I'm glad we have all opinions on the show. But this is someone who, a nonpartisan, consummate professional Inspector General, called his credibility and his basically said he was prevaricating, to put it very kindly, in dealing with the media. And now he's been asked to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Robert, you can chime in. You got a lot of experience on this, and he wants immunity. I mean, that's not the first time someone's asked for immunity, but this is a wild series of developments we've had with a former deputy FBI director.
Well, it's a smart move by his lawyer, because if he gets immunity from judiciary, then he's free from prosecution by DOJ, and so you'd rather have a day of embarrassment before a committee than do time. But I think it's always a trade-off between transparency and justice when congressional committees and DOJ are deciding whether or not to grant immunity. I mean, the benefit to immunity would be he would testify on national TV with no ability to plead the Fifth, and would have to say everything he knows, and everyone would hear it. And I think Chairman Grassley would have to weigh that against waiting to see what happens in the DOJ prosecution, which will take additional months.
I think also, does he have evidence? I mean, there's at least some reports suggesting that he may have affirmative evidence that Comey did know about this leak, that McCabe has gotten nailed for. Comey said, no, he didn't authorize that. So if he was producing something like that, that may be one reason why.
But he always backs up Comey, right? He's always backs up Comey. When
I think their interests are diverging
now. They are. But before, when the Trump conversation with Comey at the White House, and he basically said, yeah, well, Comey basically said to me what he put in his memo to the file. So they were they obviously were very tight.
On the leak, he said Comey approved it, and Comey said he didn't approve it.
Yeah.
So they're in direct contradiction on that.
Yeah, so they've diverged. Let's move on to the IG report. Then we want to go back to another Strzok issue. This IG report, the president obviously very frustrated. Again, I wouldn't be tweeting about why it's delayed, but that's, the president is going to tweet. As he's the president, he's going to tweet. But on the issue of the IG report, why do you think this is delayed? We keep hearing it's going to be out any day.
That's the problem, Laura. Like, we have a bureaucracy that is just not accountable to anybody. So we had all these major problems, and the Democrats are actually the ones that wanted this report initially. So in order to hold people accountable, if it takes a year and a half to conduct an investigation, then it's just not the way it's going. So I'd say that just the time
well, what's
is just
the point?
too much.
Like, you need a speedy trial. You need a speedy resolution.
Exactly.
I mean,
And then
it's 500 pages. However, Robert Driscoll, I want to get back to Richard, too. But, Robert, could the McCabe request for immunity have some relevance here in this delay in the Inspector General report?
No, I think people are overblowing the delay. I mean, I've represented people in this situation. When the report's done, everybody who represents someone who's been interviewed in that report gets their little chunk of the report that mentions their client, gets to review it alone in a room and not take it with them, and has about a week to get back with any comments to the IG, who then decides whether or not to take them into account or not. So the fact that it's 2 weeks after it's done is about on time. I mean, I would be concerned if it took another week or so, but right about now is about when it should be coming out, in my experience, from when the report is done to when you work through that process. And in this circumstance, there's a lot of high-powered lawyers involved. I'm sure people are billing lots of hours making objections. Hopefully,
a lot of lawyers making a lot of money here.
Exactly.
And can I say something in support of the congressman?
Yes.
I also want this report to come out as soon as possible, but I think I have different reasons. One, I think we're going to hear what Rudy Giuliani was getting in the way of information from the Southern District, from FBI agents, which allowed him to basically say before it happened that the second Comey letter was going to come out. Secondly, I think what we're going to see is that Comey, yes, acted inappropriately, but in ways that helped the Trump campaign. He sat on information about the Russian investigation about the Trump campaign and was way out there in ways that went over the, broke the rules both in July and in October by what he said about the Hillary email investigation. So I'm with you. I agree. I hope it comes out tomorrow.
What do you guys make of this new text? Well, it's not a new text. It's an unredacted text. And this is a text between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Now, we learned this today because this was released as part of the 500 pages of text released by the Senate today. And here's what this looks like. It says, you'll get our OCOUNUS, Lures approved. And just so you know what that Lures is FBI lingo for spies. So the question tonight, were these potentially sent, these spies potentially sent in to target the Trump campaign going back to December of 2015? And if so, that could be fairly explosive, could it not, Congressman? Because Jim Comey said this investigation began in July 31st to be exact, of 2016. That text, again, we'll learn more, and I know the House is kind of not exactly where the Senate is on this, but when you read that text, it certainly appears that they were looking to put more lures into the campaign in 2015. Several people are reporting this tonight. We'll learn more, I believe. But what do we think about that?
Well, that was
why did they redact that word?
Exactly.
Lures?
That was initially
then somebody comes out, it's like,
redacted.
oops, it says lures there. Lures, again, lingo for spies.
So the question is, why would that have been redacted? Is that referring? I mean, OCONUS obviously is a foreign, potentially foreign spy. But I think this idea that Crossfire Hurricane started this on July 31st, clearly that's not true. Because you had Comey, you had McCabe and Lynch deciding not to brief Trump in April when they were supposedly concerned about Carter Page. You had Stefan Halper reaching out to the campaign before then. So this did not just start on the 31st of July.
Comey testified in May of 2017.
And I think he has exposure as a result of that testimony.
So you're saying he
I don't think he was telling the truth there. No, I don't think that's true.
And would he have, there's any way he wouldn't have known, if this is true, that it started earlier, perhaps in May, when now Bill Priestap, there's another question about him.
Priestap traveled to London.
Explain who Priestap is.
So he's the head of counterintelligence. Peter Strzok was his number 2. Now, Priestap basically has said Strzok was really the main guy in both the Hillary and the Russia collusion investigations. Obviously, he wanted Hillary to be president. He hated Trump with a passion.
Yep.
But Priestap himself traveled to London in May of 2016. That was, again, 2 months before Crossfire Hurricane started.
And again, I'm going to disagree with the congressman a little bit here. What's twisted about this is that at the end of the day, What Strzok, remember, drafted the Comey letter 10 days before the election. It was his idea to kind of put that out there. He also said bad things about Bernie, about Chelsea, about Holder, in addition to Trump. The same things that Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz were saying during the campaign. The fact is that the FBI, when you look back, helped Trump by sitting on the information about him and hurt Hillary by breaking the rules and putting everything out there.
The reason why they put the letter out was not to
would have
help
been embarrassing.
Trump. It was to protect their own behind. Strzok wanted to protect his behind and Comey's behind. That's why they did it.
Well,
you're right. On July 5th, Comey should
win.
not have come out and done that. But once he came out and gave the press conference, he kind of had to do the letter. I think the letter was a mistake.
Okay, well,
Robert
handled it from the beginning.
Yeah.
Robert, on this issue of the text, though,
Right.
I mean, again, we're going to learn more, but they redacted the
Right.
word lures. Again, the lingo for spies. FBI is not supposed to use the word spies, but they use that word. Non-contiguous, unidentified informants. So OCONUS was there, that acronym, and then lures was redacted. Unredacted, now you see what it was saying.
Right.
That's, again, you get all our lures approved. I love the little smiley face. Couldn't they have used an actual emoji? They had to use that. And you know, it goes on.
Well, I think so much of this has to do with, I think the timeline is the most damaging thing for people here, because people are using a bureaucratic term when they say an investigation wasn't opened. Well, that means nothing if there was investigative activity going on before the investigation was opened. So even the FBI said, well, some of these contacts from our informants, / spies occurred, leading up to the investigation. Well, there's got to be a point, it's kind of like, did God create the earth? Who created that? Who created that? Who created that? I mean, somebody has to approve.
Who approved what? When? And let me just hold on. And remember, this thing was supposed to have been begun, kind of started sort of when that list of Trump foreign policy advisors, national security advisors came out, and Carter Page and George Papadopoulos, their names were on it in the spring of 2016.
Right.
But now, if this goes back to 2015, again, if, what were they worried about? I mean, the Strzok, they were petrified of Trump. Who knows? Maybe they thought Trump was going to catch on.
And one of the later Strzok Page texts in the fall was, POTUS wants to know everything we're doing. So what did Obama know about this, and when was he briefed on this? I don't think he was in the dark about this the whole time at all. I think Obama knew exactly what was going on.
Can we just remember that we've had whole segments on shows like this about the Strzok secret society, about the Strzok lost emails. So let's try to figure out exactly. Yeah, I agree. We need to get to the bottom of this, but to kind of,
No, I'm putting caveats in place. I agree with you, but those are technical acronyms that are used within the Bureau. Those aren't like love messages between the two of them. I mean, all those, I'm sure people are fascinated by those too, but those are technical terms. So it seems like, did you get approval for these lures?
Right.
And waiting for the answer.
But there were no spies. There was one guy who basically made a couple approaches to people that had been targeted already by the CIA and the FBI.
Well, we know that it wasn't just Carter Page. Now the report came out, Daily Caller Foundation, that also Stephen Miller was invited to that same event. What else do we know about that?
Papadopoulos, and then they reached out to Sam Clovis. And here's the thing, in the New York Times, when their big article, they said at least one person. So there is the possibility that there was more than just Stefan Halper who was trying to initiate these contacts.
July 2016, the event at University of Cambridge. It looks like they were trying to get all the nationalists like Miller. I mean, you like Russia? You come over here. Come on, Stephen Miller's really a Russian plant. But again, the timeline is important because we don't have documents, do we? We don't have a lot of documents, FBI documents.
They're refusing to produce the documents.
From that time period before July 31st.
Exactly.
That's why you're gradually getting the text.
But
we
let's
want
remember
the documents.
when we heard from Papadopoulos and others that the Russians were trying to get dirt on Hillary, not one person in the Trump campaign went to the U.S. authorities. Not one. That's a little bad. That's a bad fact.
I mean, do you think this Papadopoulos, this character is just like he's trolling bars in London. It's like, I'm going to go back to Trump Tower and I'm going to be the cool guy because I'm going to set up a meeting with Trump. I mean, he's just like the worst person to have in a campaign. Come on.
But Alexander Downer, most recently in an interview, he said, I never even heard about emails. I heard dirt. I didn't hear emails.
Yeah, that was Australian ambassador.
That's right.
I think we have to have like the deck of cards in Iraq where you have every all faces with every title. Guys, fantastic as always.